Well, hey there, everybody. It's your boy, Mr. Perry, and here we are. This will be the final lesson video for Unit 5, Lesson 9, and it's all about the keyword this, or what we can call the this keyword. All right, here we go. Let's get into it. So why do we use this? So you've seen this before, obviously. Early in the school year, even in your summer homework, we were using the keyword this, and hopefully you know already that when you've got a class file and you've got some instance variables, for instance, checking and savings. And then if you create a constructor that uses the same name in your parameters, then this is the way that you tell Java. Checking over here refers to the instance variable, whereas checking right here means our local variable checking. And then savings over here, we're referring to our instance variable, whereas savings right here, we're referring to our local variable. So we've already covered this one. You've already seen this one several times. So what does the keyword this mean? Anytime you use the keyword this in Java, it means for this current object. It behaves kind of like a temporary variable that points to the memory location of whatever object it is currently in. And the keyword this can only be used with non-static object methods or constructors. So that's one important thing to note, is that if it's a static method, remember that belongs to the class, and the this keyword is more associated with each individual object of a class. So this can only be used with non-static object methods or constructors. If it's a static method, then you can't use the keyword this. All right, so why do we use this? We use this when the name of the parameter matches the name of a private instance variable or a field. So we've already known that one. We can use the keyword this to call another constructor in the same class. And then you can also use the keyword this to pass a copy of the reference data type, or a copy of the pointer to the memory location, back to the current class. And so we're going to look at some examples of these, because I know just looking at the wording here can be a little bit confusing. All right, so why do we use it? Sometimes using the keyword this is necessary in order to make the code work. Sometimes programmers use the keyword this more as a matter of style, to clarify which variables and methods are being called by the current object of a class. So what does it look like when we say it's necessary? So for something like this, the keyword this is necessary because you have a parameter, savings, which matches the name of one of your instance variables. So whenever that happens, whether it's a constructor or whether it's a method like this one right here, where you have to say this dot savings plus equals savings, when you have a mutator method where the name of the formal parameter or parameters match the name of the instance variables, the keyword this is necessary to differentiate between which is the instance variable and then which one is the parameter. So, and of course, if the name of the parameter here does not match the keyword, the name of the instance variable, then using the keyword this becomes optional. So if you call your parameter more savings, you can say plus, or savings plus equals more savings, and you're good to go. You don't have to have the this savings on there. However, sometimes programmers use the keyword this even if it's not necessary. They use it as a matter of style to clarify which variables and methods are being called by the current object of a class. So this dot savings plus equals more savings, you don't have to have it there, but you can put it there just to kind of reiterate the fact that this version of savings is my instance variable. This is the one that belongs to the current object. So that's, like I say, a matter of style. It's not necessary. So using this is optional with this example. Some programmers prefer to clarify which portions of the code refer to the instance variables of the current object. All right. And so let's go ahead and look at a quick example here and look at, how this is being used. So here we just have a sample class, and it's got two instance variables, your private string instance variable name, which is set to me, and then you have a static variable called number, which is set to 100. And then down here, we've got public string get name, and check out what happens. String name equals you, and then it returns name. So which name is going to be returned here? Is it going to be the instance variable me, or is it going to be the local variable you? And of course, in this case, because you declared a new variable called a name and set it equal to you, it's going to return the local variable. Methods always will return the local variable before they return an instance variable, unless you said return this dot name, in which case it would know you meant the instance variable. But as written, this is going to return you. All right. Now down here, we've got string n being passed in as our parameter, and this is the setName method. And so now down here, this dot name equals n. Well, now our instance variable name is going to be set to whatever gets passed in as n. Down here, we have a non-static method which has access to your static variables here. But we are passing in a parameter called number, which is the same name as our static variable. However, when you say this dot number equals number, well, that's going to go ahead and take our static variable number and set it equal to whatever parameter is being passed in. So this sets the instance number variable to the local variable number right here. All right, now I also mentioned that another way that you can use the this keyword is to call another constructor in the same class. So you might be curious why we might do that. So we'll go ahead and look at a quick example here. Right here we have our no argument constructor, public my class. So this is our constructor with no argument. And it says this and then you. Now what this does is this the keyword of this here actually calls the parameterized constructor down here, and it sends in you as the name formal parameter. So what I could do if I wanted to is I could create a no argument constructor as well as a parameterized constructor. And my no argument constructor can simply call my parameterized constructor with whatever values I want to pass in. So this is kind of a quicker way of doing a default constructor. If I had several different instance variables like name and number and something else, I could just with my default constructor, instead of saying this dot name equals blank and then this dot number equals 0, I can just say this and then pass in my parameters for my parameterized constructor, and then just go ahead and leave everything like I normally would. This dot name would take my instance variable name and set it equal to whatever is being passed in here, and then number plus plus would obviously increment my number. So that's how that works, right? So it can be used for a no argument constructor, right? So if I did string name and int number, here we go. Here's my no argument constructor, just saying this and then me 100, which calls my parameterized constructor, and it's just going to go ahead and set my instance variable name and number to be me and 100. So being able to read through code like this and being able to just know what are going to be the values of your instance variables when you see this kind of a thing, this is potentially an important aspect of this lesson. However, it's important to note that doing your constructor like this, it only works if you have this as the very first line of code in the constructor. If there are any other lines of code, like even just a simple print statement right here, if you have anything here before you call your parameterized constructor, then this is going to cause an error. So that's important to know as well, that if there's anything before you use this and then your parameterized constructor, that you'll get an error. Okay, now the most potentially confusing circumstance out of this one is using the keyword this can also be used to pass the current object that called the method into the actual parameters of a constructor or even another method. So to look at this, we're going to have to look at some code that is in our main method. We're going to also have to look at some code that is in the pay class. We're also going to have to look at some other code in a third class called overtime. But we'll just take this one step at a time here. Let's go ahead and read through what's going on. So first off, pay, my pay equals new pay, $100. So here we are creating a new object called my pay, and it is in the pay class. And then the next line, my pay dot calculate pay with overtime. All right, so now we're calling the method, calculate pay with overtime. So here we are over here in the pay class, and we found our calculate pay with overtime method. And what happens is when you call this method, which we're doing right here, the first thing it does is it creates an object of the overtime class. Overtime OT equals new overtime this. All right. So what happens is the keyword this is being used to pass in the object that called the method, which is my pay. So the my pay object, which we instantiated here with a pay of $100, is being passed in as the actual parameter for our overtime object OT. And then what we're doing down here is we've created a variable pay, and we're setting it equal to ot.getOvertimePay. So now what happens is, I mentioned this gets a little convoluted. We jump into the overtime class, and as you can see, when you create a overtime method, here's the constructor, sorry. When you create an overtime object, it's expecting an object of the pay class. And what it does is it calculates pay with overtime to be p.getPay. So we're now calling the getPay method from the pay class here, and then multiplying it by 1.5. So this calculates pay with the overtime for the my pay object. So basically what's happening here is we have two separate classes, and we're kind of streamlining the code a little bit here by when we need to calculate pay with overtime, we go ahead and we create a new object of the overtime class. But rather than having rather than hard coding in whatever argument we need to pass in, we can just say this, which refers to whatever object happened to call it. And that's really the most important thing to get out of this part of it, is that when you see this happening, when you see a constructor with the word this as the parameter, that just means whatever object called this method that you see up here, that's what's going to be passed in. And the same thing would happen if it said calculate pay with overtime and then it said this up here. It would mean whatever object called this method is being passed in. That's not quite the way this one is structured. This one's structured a little bit more complex, but that's the main idea. So once you pass in this object into here, you can then call the pay with overtime method, and that gets returned from the overtime pay method call. All right. And then just one final note, an important thing to note is that static variables cannot be referenced using the this keyword, and since static variables do not belong to each individual object of a class. And remember, this means for this current object. So there always has to be an object attached when you're using the keyword this. This cannot be used for anything related to static variables. So right here, public animal, string animal type. So we've got our constructor for the animal class, and it says this dot animal type equals animal type. So obviously we're going ahead and taking our instance variable and setting it equal to be our formal parameter. And then animal count plus plus means, all right, let's go ahead and increment that animal counter. But you would never write this dot animal count plus plus, because again, the keyword this is not associated with static variables like what you see here. And then similarly, static methods cannot use the keyword this. So here we have, again, we've just gone back into our sample class. We've got our instance variable name and our static variable number. We're skipping our constructor and our methods, and we're jumping down here, public static void print values. So this is a static method, and you can see what it's trying to do is it says system.out.println this.getName, this.getNumber. So they're trying to use the keyword this to call getName and getNumber, but this would cause an error because again, this is a static method. Static methods cannot contain the keyword this. It's just not allowed again because static methods don't get called using an object. All right, lesson review time. Within a non-static method or constructor, the keyword this is a reference to the current object, the object whose method or constructor is being called. This.instance variable can be used to distinguish between the object's instance variable and the local parameter variables that may have the same variable names. Static methods do not have a this reference, so we've just covered that. And then the this variable can be used anywhere you would use an object variable, even to pass it into another method as an argument. All right, guys, well, that's it. I'm assuming you might have some questions on this one, so feel free to leave a question or a comment, and I will see you in class.